its structure and definition worldwide, in the sense that we have researchers and artists who work together, and everything that is done at IRCAM has as its core goal for being for the arts. Okay, so you see a small video of IRCAM and these studios. So it was founded in the late 70s by a composer, Pierre Boulez, and with the goal that you see over here, with the goal of creating exchange between the arts and the sciences. So before I introduce some of the activities at IRCAM, it's important to know that at IRCAM we have research groups that work on different aspects of sound. So researchers at IRCAM are like any other researcher, for example, in Hanyang University or other universities, which constitute half of the population. On top of that, we have artists, composers, people from theater and any art field who are present in the institute and who work with researchers. And we have our own festival, and we are also artistically present all around the world in different festivals and venues. Just to give you an idea, in 2010 and 2011, we've had publications in major scientific journals, but we've also had concerts and a lot of spectators. In 2011, we had around 35,000 spectators only in France for the art pieces that we produce. So in what follows, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how research and the arts collaborate together at IRCAM. I'm going to give you some examples on several aspects of sound and music. We're going to see some scientific problems and how some artists have used them. And while I'm presenting these different themes, I'm going to just give you a hint of what you might want to see in the next 3 days. Because as Paula mentioned, there are going to be parallel sessions, so you might want to choose what you want to see. Of course, using the program, but if you're not sure, I'm going to help you choose what you want to see. Okay. So I'm going to start with music and space. So you see a picture of a very well-known composer, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, who in the 50s, I think, is trying to spatialize sound. Okay, so today, if you want to spatialize sound, you use the software with speakers. At that time, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, the composer, wanted to make a sound that would go around the audience. Okay, so what he did was that he put microphones around the hall, and he made a speaker, and he put the sound he wanted to go around the audience, and he would play the sound and he would turn the speaker around and record the sound. It's one of the first spatialized sounds artificially ever made. Okay? So this is a very interesting example of how an artist wants to solve and also expose a scientific problem. And of course, since then, things have changed a lot. You can use space as a compositional parameter in many different ways. And of course, the idea goes back to centuries. Of course, in Asian music, you have spatial parameters as composition, but also in 15th or 16th century in Venice, some older composers like Gabrieli were using space as a compositional parameter. So you can change, of course, the acoustics or space by doing architecture, by building a new concert hall or a new conference room, which means that you can change it physically. At IRCAM, we have a very special concert hall where the walls, they move. So they are all connected to some motors, and we can tell the hall that I want this kind of reverberation. And they will turn around and give you the acoustics that you want. That's what we use to adapt the concert hall situation to the music that we're going to play. Of course, if you want to play Baroque music, you want a more reverberant hall, for example, simplistically speaking. but you can use it as a compositional parameter. But this is very expensive, as you might agree. So today, you can use softwares. Okay? So the SPAT technology at IRCAM, which is available as Max objects and also as VST plugins, is used for that, and also for more advanced technologies. It's a real-time spatialization module that people use in many pieces. The pieces that you're going to hear tonight, for example, all, with no exception, are going to use this SPAT technology to do spatialization. But you can also use them, and they are being used also in video games and also other applications that my colleague Frederic also is going to talk about. So these are the tools, but of course composers, they want to go beyond the tools, and that's what makes things interesting. So when you want to use SPAT, as you can see here, you have your listener in the middle of the hall, and you can move sources around. It creates a virtual acoustic space. But some composers wanted to create other vocabularies for controlling space. I'm going to give you some examples. For example, this is a diagram from Emmanuel Nunes, a Portuguese composer who worked at IRCAM, for the series of pieces called Lichtung, where, as you can see, he has an unconventional way of describing space and also describing movement in space. Okay? So he's not interested in moving a source around. He's interested in a very specific vocabulary. Okay? So in this sense, I would say that our work as researchers and engineers at IRCAM is like craftsmanship, like people who make tiny, unique things for personalized for each composer. Of course, what is interesting is that situations like this very often lead to software and technologies that are going to be useful for other people. And that's what I'm going to show you what comes next. So, of course, when we started working at IRCAM, there are some composers who don't like the sound of speakers. Okay? So on the right, you see how the stereo speaker system, like the one we have here, propagates sound in space. On the left, you see a recording of how the sound of a saxophone propagates into space. You see that this one is very complex, this one is very simple. That's why many musicians think that the sound of live instruments are more alive than speakers. So this question introduced a whole new line of research at IRCAM in order to produce complex sounds out of a single source on stage for live electronics, which gave the TIME technology. Okay. So this is another example. And of course, this idea can go much further. Here you see examples of pieces done at IRCAM with composer Marco Stroba, Italian composer, where he uses a different setup for speakers. Here you have a column of speakers. It's a piece called His Twist for violin and chamber electronics, where you have a column of speakers in different directions. Okay? So here he has his own vocabulary for space. On the right, you have a piece for a simplified TIME. It's like an acoustic totem, if you want, on stage for saxophone and live electronics. Okay? So it's not just about technologies and tools, it's about what you want to do with them. And what interests us at IRCAM is what we can't do with existing technologies and how we can do innovation. Okay? You can also go much further. We have now, this this is a very hot topic. It's wave-filled synthesis, so you have a big line of speakers in a concert hall. So again, on the right, you see the stereo. On the left, you see how, with this new system, you can propagate sound. The nice thing about this technology is that you don't need to be in the middle of the hall to hear the movements. Okay, that's what we call the sweet spot problem. If you go to a movie theater where there are sounds going around or moving, you better sit in the middle. Otherwise, you're not going to perceive a lot of movements. With this technology, you won't have that problem, but you can also do more interesting things, artistically speaking, that I'm not going to get into details, just ask me. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. So now I'm going to completely change the topic. We're going to talk about sound synthesis and analysis. How can we create new sounds? Okay. So in the past few years, we have done a lot of focus on voice. Okay. So people who try to transform human voice or create new sounds out of human voice. I'm going to show you three very, very different examples. The first example is from the Greek composer George Apergis, the piece Machination, done in 2000 with 3 performers on stage, live video and live electronics. Most of the sounds that you're going to hear are going to be created live from the performance. So let's watch a short video. Will show you more public and industrial uses of the same technology. I'm going to make you listen to another example that comes from French composer Mikhail Levinas's new opera on Kafka's Metamorphoses. Here, in the example that I'm going to play, there is one single voice, but you're going to hear several people. It's his same voice being multiplied by live technologies. In this case, the Super BP technology that you can download on Foronet. It's interesting to know, and also the audioscope technology that you can also participate in the workshops. It's interesting to know that when we did this opera, the technologies that we had did not have the quality that you're going to hear. This project contributed greatly to the quality of the Super BP technology that you have today. So this is a very short excerpt on one single voice from Levinas's opera. One single soprano, but she's transposed and she becomes a baritone, bass, etc. And the quality is very high. I'm going to show you a very last example, this time on speech. We have techniques for synthesizing somebody's voice. If we have a database of you speaking, we can make you say anything that you have never said. And we're going to see examples of this later on, and you can also check. Composer George Apergis did artistic use of this. Of course, he was not interested in saying to someone something he has never said. That's politically incorrect, if you want. But he was interested in making a music score of things that human voice cannot say. Okay, so you will hear an expert from his piece, Luna Park. You can also check the video we are projecting outside on Luna Park or also on the web. So this is actually a very famous French actor saying things that normally you cannot easily pronounce.
Quand je peut-être trop spécial.
Okay, it's up to you if you want to do the same thing. It's not my problem. But it's interesting to know that the voice transformation technologies, they exist in Max, but since last year, they also exist as a VST plugin for film producers and also people who come from other fields. Another example for sound synthesis, and this is something that is coming very soon to Forumnet, it's automatic orchestration. Okay, so let's say that you have some sounds and you want to imagine the orchestra playing these sounds. We have made some technologies, very advanced technologies, that can take a sound and propose solutions in the orchestra to reproduce those sounds. Okay, so this is the ORKEY software that is going to come out. And this afternoon, I'm going to show you a concrete artistic use of this software in a piece composed by Jonathan Hardy at IRCAM. Just an example, I'm going to give the software some car horn. And the software is going to propose two solutions. So this is computer-aided composition. The first solution is with winds. And the second solution is going to be with strings. And for the last solution, I'm going to give it some unconventional bowed piano sound like this. This is a real sound, and it's going to suggest something like this. For those of you who are familiar, it sounds very much like French spectral music. But now we have gone much further with this, and this is what you're going to see on Orchis. We are also dealing with noisy sounds, and this afternoon I'm going to show you how we use this on speech. So for a piece by Jonathan Hardy where he wanted the orchestra to speak. Okay. Another example, let's say unconventional example, from composer Aaron Einbond, who did the composition courses at IRCAM for the piece What the Blind Can See. He had some natural sound, in this case some rain sound, and he wanted to compose a score out of this. So he used two technologies. The open music technology, you can participate in workshops for that, to transcribe the sounds to a score. And then he used another technology at IRCAM called the Catart in Max to reproduce them with electronics, with instruments. So the source is this. It's the rain. It's a rain scene. And the result in the concert is half live instruments and half electronics. So as another example that is probably more mixed, I'm going to show you a small excerpts from a piece by composer Roque Rivas, again a young composer who did the composition courses. Here you will see a piece for singers, live video, and live electronics. So here, there is no single technology at stake. He's using a lot of different technologies that I showed you earlier. And it shows actually the rigor of an artistic project. Okay, so this is an excerpt of Mutations of Matter by Roque Rivas. You're going to see the singers at some point behind the curtains, behind the video curtains. Now I'm going to completely change the topic again. I'm going to show you some examples of how composers, besides composing, they also do very heavy programming. Okay, so it's not new. This has never been like the other things that I showed. Nothing is invented at IRCAM. Actually, the first composer who started programming music is Roger Hiller in 1950s, who started composing with the very first computers available. And he actually made a special keyboard for writing music, which you can see over here. Okay? So this is the very beginning of music formalization. He started to formalize the processes governed in music composition by programs. And of course, it excelled with Yanis Xenakis around the same time, which led to his book that you can also download, and also led to algorithmic music by Pierre Barbeau and also Wilfried Michael Koenig. So this is the very beginning of computer-assisted composition. Today there are several platforms used around the world for this. One of them that is developed at IRCAM is Open Music. And for this, I'm going to show you a real piece of music composed in Open Music. If you participate in the Open Music workshop on Thursday, Grégoire Loriot is actually going to show you another piece in high details. Actually, the piece that you're going to hear in the 10th concert by Tristan Mouray is going to analyze the Open Music patch. Okay? Here I'm going to show a very quick overview of what you can do. So you can organize your material over time. Since we're running out of time. Of course, with Open Music, you can do much more. You can also analyze sounds and create scores out of real sounds, and you're going to see examples of that in the workshop. Now let's go to musical interaction. So this is something that IRCAM is very well known. So you can interact with many different things. So we're talking about how on stage you can have real-time musical interaction. So you can interact with score, you can interact with gesture, you can interact with sound, you can interact physically. So I'm going to just give you some examples of what we have done in the past few years at IRCAM, and of course you can download the associated softwares. So Many of you have probably heard and seen sensors and have used them. I'm going to show you a small piece that was composed in 2006. It's like an etude or an esquisse for an augmented violin with some sensors installed on the bow. The electronics that you're going to hear in this piece is entirely generated out of the sensors. So it's a very simple piece, but it's also highly pedagogical by Florence Bachet, and it led to many of the tools that you can use on gesture processing today. Of course, you can, gesture does not need to come from sensors. It can also come from sound. And this is what you're going to hear. So there are some aspects of the pieces you're hearing tonight in the concert, especially in Philippe Manoury's Partita 2, that are highly gestural, and there are no sensors involved. He's actually analyzing the audio. So from audio, you can also grab some gesture. Of course, not everything. And you're going to see some other examples from composers who are presenting. You can also follow some sensors. This is the motion follower technology that is also available on Forumet since last November, and I'm going to bypass this very quickly and show you maybe a small video of a sub-product of this technology that is going to be available soon on the market that is called Mojis. The idea is strictly the same. You have a very cheap sensor that is taking the movement around you, and you're going to connect it to some software that is going to do sound synthesis. This is the Mojis technology. Of course, it's a greater public if you want a musical toy, or instrument. It is going to be available for iPad by the end of the year. And as you can hear, some of the sounds are highly physical, okay? Which brings me to my last topic on sound synthesis, is you can also describe sound by their physics. Okay? So here you see Tibetan gong vibration, of course, in slow motion. So you can also create surfaces like this and make them sound. Over here, and here you see the symbolic description of the live electronics. So first, she's going to play this. Without electronics. The whole idea is that there is a computer that is listening to her and is going to, of course, trigger the live electronic events, but it's also going to adapt the tempo of the live electronics according to the performance. and now with library contents. Now the CPU usage is 5%. Okay, this is 2 years old. And of course, with the same technology, you can do other stuff. So I just show you a very small video. So this is automatic accompaniment. You play the solo part, the computer is going to play the accompaniment. Second time, but he's going to change the tempo. So here you go. There is also a workshop in this technology that is called Antescopho, and here we're also using Super VP for real-time stretch. So this was just to give you an idea of the things we do at IRCAM, but it's not the totality of our activities at IRCAM. My colleague is giving me a sign like this that I need to finish. So I suggest everyone to get involved in the 3-day workshop. And don't forget that you can also get in touch with other composers and artists on ForumNet by joining user groups for each software, and they are very, very active. So it's a good way to ask questions and share experience. And I thank everyone, and I'm going to invite Richard